6-year-old Eli Hart was a kindergartner who loved playing on the monkey bars and going fishing with his dad. He was born with medical challenges that required surgeries and hearing aids. But teachers and family said he was always smiling, always making friends. In May 2022, during a traffic stop in Orono, Minnesota, police found Eli's body in the trunk of his mother's car. She'd shot him 9 times with a shotgun. It had been exactly 10 days since Dakota County gave her full custody of Eli. There's a moment in a lot of true crime cases where you realize that tragedy didn't have to happen. Someone saw the warning signs, someone raised the alarm, someone tried to intervene, and then you find out that all those someones were ignored and a child ended up dead. The case of Eli Hart is one of those stories where every single person who tried to save him was told to sit down and be quiet, and 10 days later, that little boy was gone. Eli was 6 years old in May 2022. He was in kindergarten at Shirley Hills Primary School in Mound, Minnesota. By all accounts, he was this bright, energetic kid who loved being around other people. His dad, Eli Hart, said Eli was always happy, always outgoing, full of energy. He loved the monkey bars at the park, loved playing with toy cars, loved going fishing. Eli had medical challenges from birth. He was born with a genetic disorder called Townes-Brox syndrome that affected his feet and his hearing. He had multiple surgeries when he was a baby and wore hearing aids, but none of that slowed him down. Teachers said he was popular with the other kids. He made friends very easily. But Eli's home life was a different story. His mother, Julissa Thaler, had been struggling with severe mental illness and addiction since she was a teenager. Between the ages of 13 and 18, she was in and out of mental health institutions. She was treated repeatedly for drug and alcohol abuse. During her senior year of high school, she ran away and lived on the streets for 45 days. As an adult, her life was chaotic. She had arrests for stealing pharmaceuticals from a health clinic. She was kicked out of court-ordered parenting classes. Between 2020 and 2021, police were called to her home 21 times in a 10-month period. In October 2020, Dakota County Social Services found Eli wandering around naked in a house described as being in terrible condition. That's when they removed him and placed him with the foster mother named Nikita Kronberg. Nikita loved that little boy, but she also saw something that terrified her. She told social workers, she told the court-appointed guardian, she told anyone who would listen that she believed Julissa would kill Eli if she ever got him back. She said Julissa would rather see Eli dead than let his father have custody. She said this multiple times. She was explicit about it. Eli Hart was fighting desperately to protect his son. Julissa had thrown all kinds of accusations at Tori, trying to keep him away from Eli. She accused him of domestic abuse. She claimed he planted a nail bomb in her car. None of it was true. Police never substantiated any of it, but it created enough chaos that it delayed Tori's efforts to get custody. In March 2022, he was sending frantic emails to social workers saying Eli was being neglected, sleep-deprived, wearing dirty clothes for days, missing medical appointments. Even the social workers' own reports showed serious problems. During supervised visits, Eli would hide behind furniture to avoid his mother. He'd have bathroom accidents after seeing her. Classic signs of a child experiencing trauma. But despite all of this, despite the 21 police calls, despite the warnings, despite Eli's own behavior screaming that something was wrong, Dakota County Social Services recommended closing the protective case and giving Julissa full custody. On May 10, 2022, a judge did exactly that. 10 days later, Eli was dead. On March 11, 2022, Eli Hart filed a petition seeking full custody of Eli. 6 days later, on March 17th, Julissa bought a 12-gauge shotgun. This wasn't impulsive. She took a friend to the gun range the next 2 days to learn how to shoot it. Neighbors saw her carrying the shotgun wrapped in a gray blanket between her apartment and her car. Her Google search history tells you everything. She searched, how much blood can a 6-year-old lose? She searched, how much does life insurance pay for a dead child? She looked up how to get away with crimes. Days before she killed Eli, she went into a gun shop and asked the clerk for ammunition that would, quote, blow the biggest hole in something. On the night of May 19th, 2022, Eli was at Julissa's apartment in Spring Park. Her boyfriend, Robert Pickerainian, was there. He later testified that Eli was playing with kittens and getting rowdy. Julissa got angry. When Eli wouldn't go to bed, she started hitting him. Pickerainian eventually went to sleep, but before he did, he saw Julissa take the shotgun to her car, come back inside, grab Eli, and leave with him late at night. Cell phone tracking showed exactly where she went. She drove to a secluded parking lot at Lake Minnetonka Regional Park. Eli was strapped into his booster seat in the back of her silver Chevrolet Impala. Julissa fired 6 rounds from the shotgun into her son at close range. Then she reloaded and fired 3 more shots into his body and head. The force of the blasts blew out the back window. After killing Eli, Julissa drove around with his body in her trunk. At some point, one of her tires shredded completely and she was driving on a bare metal rim. She stopped at multiple gas stations and threw evidence into dumpsters. She dumped Eli's backpack with his kindergarten worksheets inside. She dumped his blood-soaked booster seat. Around 7:10 in the morning on May 20th, police pulled her over after getting reports about a damaged vehicle. The officer said she looked disheveled and nervous, avoiding eye contact. He noticed what looked like blood on her hands and face in a spray pattern. When he asked her about it, she gave a bizarre excuse. First, she said it was menstrual blood. Then she said she'd been carrying deer meat from a butcher. Inside the car, there was blood spattered on the ceiling and back door. There was a bullet hole in the back seat. But officers didn't search the trunk right away. Julissa complained about being cold and refused to sit in the squad car. So they gave her a ride home and let her go. It wasn't until after they dropped her off that they searched the vehicle. That's when they opened the trunk and found Eli's body wrapped in a gray blanket with a shotgun laying beside him. Police went back to arrest Julissa, but she'd already left on foot. Inside, they found the washing machine running with the blood-stained clothes she'd been wearing during the traffic stop. When they caught her shortly after, she still had blood and what appeared to be biological matter in her hair. DNA testing would later confirm it was Eli's tissue. The trial started in early 2023. The prosecution had an overwhelming case. They had the gun purchase 6 days before Tori filed for custody. They had the Google searches. They had cell phone data placing her at the murder scene. They had DNA evidence. They had the ammunition purchase. They had Pickerainian's testimony about the violent night before. The defense barely mounted a case. Their argument was that the state couldn't prove the gun was in her hands at the exact moment of the shooting. They suggested maybe she was an accomplice, but there was zero evidence anyone else was involved. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding Julissa Thaler guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and second-degree intentional murder. At her sentencing hearing in February 2023, she did not show remorse. She maintained her innocence and used profanity to insult the court and Eli's family. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Ms. Thaler, you have a right to speak this morning if you'd like. You don't have any obligation to speak, but if you'd like to choose to speak, now is the time to do it.
Yes, I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
I'm innocent. Fuck you all. You're garbage. That's all, Your Honor.
Ms. Thaler, I don't know that that's appropriate here.
Sorry I told you what somebody else can.
What I would say is, the worst thing that seems to happen to parents is to lose their child. It's worse, though, when you don't lose your child to something like cancer or an accident. It's when someone takes that child from the world. What I can't imagine, nobody can imagine, is when the person that takes a child from the world is the one that brought that child in. But that is what the jury concluded you did, and I respect the jury's judgment, and I respect Minnesota's decision about what the appropriate consequence is. Nothing I do would bring justice to this situation. Nothing I do would relieve any of the pain that you caused by doing that. But what is, according to law, the just and fair sentence for what you did is what Mr. Aller said, and that is life in prison without the possibility of parole. So I will judge you guilty of first-degree murder and issue that sentence. I will not impose any sentence.
I can't hear you over your stomach grumbling. I'm sorry.
The bottom line is that you are being sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, Ms. Thaler. I'm not going to impose any kind of fine or fees. I will require that you submit a DNA sample. As I mentioned, I'll keep restitution of...
Eli Hart filed a federal lawsuit against Dakota County and the social workers who handled Eli's case. In December 2024, the county settled for $2.25 million. They didn't admit wrongdoing, but it was a public acknowledgement that something went catastrophically wrong. Torrey and his wife Josephine started the Eli Hart Foundation to help other parents fighting for custody who can't afford legal representation. Here's what this case really comes down to. Eli was a little boy who survived surgeries and medical challenges and was still happy. He was resilient and social and very loved. And then the people whose job it was to protect him ignored 21 police calls, ignored a foster mother who explicitly said she believed this would happen, ignored a father who begged them to intervene, and gave that child back to someone who had already shown everyone exactly what she was capable of. Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Murder, bingeable true crime stories. I'm Joe. I'm the host, and here's an email. Subject, Ted Bundy. Hi, Joe, and greetings from Devon, England. Love your podcasts. For the past year or so, I've been traveling through your back catalog, and I've reached back to July 2021, where I came across your 3-part podcast of Ted Bundy. I guess I/you/us/we get to the point where you become somewhat immune to the depraved behaviors of murders and the like, but the Bundy tapes certainly gave me the creeps, especially when they contained so much of his actual voice. Mercifully, in British society, we don't usually get to that level of violence, apart from notable exceptions, of course. Keep up the good work. I'll reach out at the end of your archive at some point. Cheers, David. David, thank you for the email. I didn't know the internet reached that far. JK. I really do appreciate the email and, the Ted Bundy stuff. Back when I covered that, and like you said, 2021, man, it's been some years. It didn't seem like it was that long ago, but those were some sleepless nights where I was researching that because Ted Bundy seemed so average and normal and smart, and ladies found him attractive and all these things, and he was just a sicko in every way possible. And you'll find once you run through the archive of stories here on 10-Minute Murder, I repeat some every now and then. If I want to update the information or talk about a different angle in different cases, I'll repeat them. And Ted Bundy is one that I think I could cover once a year till further notice. There's so much to talk about when it comes to Ted Bundy. All right, if you are a new listener to this podcast, make sure you hit subscribe right now. You can also go to 10minutemurder.com, get more information about the podcast, send me a message, sign up for the weekly newsletter. OG listeners, I love you. Keep sharing the show with your friends and your family, rating it 5 stars wherever that's possible. And that's going to do it. That's your episode for today. Thank you again for listening to 10-Minute Murder. See you next time.